I'm feeling anxious, it's really painful, and you're telling me that I have to coexist with this. It's like, what are you talking about, Carly? As soon as you start putting your attention on it and struggling and trying to get rid of it, it's like throwing fuel on the fire. It grows. It's the acceptance, it's the willingness to feel the discomfort, but knowing it will pass.
Hello, I'm Dr Jodi Richardson, and you're listening to Well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive. Welcome to my very first episode of Well, Hello Anxiety. I am really excited to be bringing this podcast to you today. It's something that I've wanted to do for quite some time. And ironically, there's been a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of resistance getting in the way that was slowing me down. But my philosophy is to feel anxious and do it anyway. So here I am, and it is an absolute pleasure to introduce you to my first guest, Carly Taylor. This is in the interests of putting everything on the table, this is not my very first podcast interview. You'll hear that in episode 3. But this is the very first episode that I'm going to be obviously sharing with you. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce today's guest. Carly Taylor is a mindset coach. She's a nutritionist. She's qualified in acceptance and commitment therapy, Japanese psychology, personal training. She has an holistic approach to wellness and really helping people to dial down their challenges and get back on with their life and creating a life that's really rich and full. So I also have the pleasure of calling Carly a friend. So Carly, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, Jodi, thank you so much for having me. It's a real honour to be your first guest.
Oh gosh, no, look, I wanted to invite you to be guest sort of number one, because I think this will really help set the tone for what this podcast is about. And as you know, I have a lifelong history of anxiety. I don't actually remember a time when anxiety wasn't a part of my life. My earliest memories are really of having a very upset tummy in primary school, and that's more I'll share about with you over the journey of the podcast. But I love your approach. You know, we're both very passionate about acceptance and commitment therapy, which is a really counterintuitive but powerful approach to managing anxiety and really managing life. And we've had many a conversation that's gone over time. So I thought, why not join each other here today?
Yes, yeah. And it was actually you that introduced me to acceptance and commitment therapy, because it was over a sticky chai and a soy latte. And I remember I had just finished my Japanese psychology certification, and you started talking about acceptance commitment therapy, and it just all gelled for me, and it was like that was my first introduction. So thank you.
Oh my goodness! I just got chills hearing you say that. I do. I remember you talking about your trip overseas, and I'd love for you to share more with us about that experience and what brought you to Japanese psychology first, and how they all fit together. Tell me, tell us about Japanese psychology, how it's different to Western psychology, and let's talk about acceptance and commitment therapy as well. And I'd really love to hear more about your journey. This is great.
Yeah, so Japanese psychology is it stems from Zen Buddhism, and it's very much, I guess, the way it differs from Western psychology. Traditional Western psychology is about a lot of talking about your problems and analysing and going back into the past and trying to work out why you are feeling the way you're feeling. And look, often that can help. Talking therapy is a very long process. What I love about Japanese psychology is rather than talking about your problems, the approach is that there's nothing to fix, that all emotion is part of the human experience, and it's a natural part of us being human. And the goal's not to fix anything or to get rid of the unhelpful emotions, as hard as that is, but it's about living a rich and fulfilled life coexisting with those unhelpful emotions, and being able to live a life based on purpose rather than a life based on feeling and emotion.
Oh, what a beautiful summary. And it's a very different approach. And, I spent a lot of time in talking therapy when, I only recognized I had anxiety after experiencing depression, which is really what sent me to get help, because the anxiety I lived with was just as far as I knew, just normal life.
Mm,
And so, yeah, the talking therapy was really, it was life changing for me, but it was a very, very long process. And it wasn't until, it got me through life for a long, long time. And I'm forever indebted to my incredible psychologist, Alec, who's since retired. But I'm okay with that, because that was the foundation for me really gaining the insight into who I was, what I was struggling with, why I was struggling with it, building some coping strategies.
yeah.
Uh, but it wasn't until I discovered acceptance and commitment therapy. And it's funny, I discovered, and we call it ACT. So from here on in this episode, we can call it ACT,
Hmm.
not ACT as the acronym. And it was when I was with another hat on in another life, it feels, I was doing an interview with the head of wellbeing at the AFL Players Association. So, for those of you not familiar with AFL, it's the Australian Football League. It's the number one football code here in Australia, and the head of wellbeing for the players as a whole was working with the players from an ACT perspective, and that was just part of the toolkit that they used. And it was just like this light bulb went off when I realised that there's this really different and powerful approach to not only being able to dial down. It's not about getting rid of, as you said. There's nothing to fix. It's a process and a strategy that's based in multiple different areas, but acceptance being one of them. And the idea that you could stop struggling, that you could stop fighting, you could stop fixing, it's powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've had clients come with, debilitating anxiety and, even other conditions like, eating disorder or, not being able to talk up in meetings, and for them to come and hear that we're not going to fix anything here, but what we're going to do is we're going to use some tools that we are able to make room for those emotions, but work out what's important to you, how you want to live your life, and then take action with that. So Morita therapy, which is there's three parts to Japanese psychology, and Morita therapy is one of them. And it actually, the name they call it is the psychology of action. So it's very much, and Greg Creech, who's my mentor, he has this great quote: is that you can't figure out your life in your mind, you figure out life through direct experience of living. And I just
Mm.
love that. And so even though it's good to work out, because we are a product of our experience from when we were born right up into to now, and all our neurons are connected and wired in a way, based on experience. So, but through neuroplasticity and through direct action, you're able to change your brain. So it's a very action orientated approach with very purpose driven, which is a part of it that I absolutely love.
Oh, look, and it is, and everything. When we do something new, no matter what it is, and when it's pushing us outside of our comfort zone, like you were saying about one of your clients being able to speak up in a meeting, or there's so many extra challenges, and I think there's so many layers of stress, anxiety, worry, and uncertainty on a lot of us at the moment,
Yes,
and
yeah.
to be able to what a relief for your clients, and when working with acceptance and commitment therapy and taking this very different approach. Do you find that at first there's a little bit of a kind of like a resistance, or you need to explain the ideas a little bit more to bring somebody along for the ride, or are people sort of like immediately able to sort of say, wow, this is something new, this is something different, I've not looked at it like this before? What sort of responses do you get from clients when you sort of explain to them how it is that you work?
Yeah, it's very different depending on the client, and it also depends how fused they are with, or how connected they are with these emotions that are holding them back. That I get some clients who are just ready and they're like, Carly, just give it to me. I give them tools, practical tools to practice. So I call them experiments in between our sessions, and they will take it and just run with it. And often change happens quite quickly. But then I will have other clients who just don't get that. It's like, I'm feeling anxious. It's really painful, and you're telling me that I have to coexist with this. It's like, what are you talking about, Carly? That's the hardest part, and that's the most challenging part, because when you have intense pain, it's a natural reaction to want to get rid of it, to want to fix it. So it's a skill, and it's like building a muscle in a gym. It's like, the more you focus on that muscle, the more you work out, it will grow. And just like this skill, it's the more you put these things into practice and use these tools, then it will kind of flow into your life.
You're right. It is. It does get easier with time and with practice, and it's that willingness, isn't it, to and I'll finish that sentence. It's that willingness to sit with the pain, and I remember, I'm recording this from my home in a suburb of Melbourne in Victoria, and we've lived here a long time, and I remember sitting in the very kitchen in the next room on the floor and ringing my psychologist, Alec, and just feeling really down. It was a time when I was struggling with depression, and I'm not anymore. And that was sort of like a really huge and challenging time in my life. But I moved through that and, discovered that anxiety was really at the root of everything. But I remember ringing him, and you don't have a direct bat phone to your psychologist as much as you'd love to. You need to leave a message. You need to wait for a call back. And I just remember saying to him, this is so hard. I don't know what to do with myself. And he said, why don't you just try sitting on the floor in the kitchen like I was, leaning against the bench with my knees tucked up to my chest and crying? And he said, just sit there and just experience how you're feeling. He said, you're feeling depressed, and that's okay. And right now, you don't need to do anything. You are feeling this way. And I would sort of say to myself, I'm feeling depressed, and that's okay. And I was able just to even sort of say, I'm feeling like this, and then develop this idea that I can feel like this and I don't actually have to do anything. And he said, just think about what you might do when you feel like doing something else. And he said, what might you do? And I said, well, I'll play with the dogs. I might go out in the garden. Peter, my husband, he that doesn't happen anymore. He's not too thrilled. I don't get out in the garden anymore. We've since had kids. Need I say more?
Get a gardener.
Oh gosh, that'd be lovely. And so that was, when there are turning points in your life where something really big, you learn a really big lesson, and it's a turning point. And from that moment forward, you handle things differently. And because it is painful, and it's difficult, but the irony of it all is that when you have that develop, and you don't have to like it, and I think I'd like to ask you about that in a moment, because it takes great fortitude to, make room for discomfort. But once you develop that willingness, and you can say, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling anxious. Not that you're doing that to get rid of it, but strangely enough, you move through it. It moves through you. You move through it with much less resistance than if you were trying to sort of squish it, squash it, push it out the way, get rid of it, and just feel better.
Yeah. As soon as you start putting your attention on it and struggling and trying to get rid of it, it's like throwing fuel on the fire. It grows. And I love that advice that your psychologist gave you, because it's the acceptance, it's the willingness to feel the discomfort, but knowing it will pass. And the emotions are like the weather. It's like one day can be, but we can have a storm, and the next day it can be sunny. And that's just like our emotions. Or we could have, 5 seasons in one day, and that can be us on an emotional level, especially our teenagers. So it's the willingness to feel this discomfort, to knowing that it will pass. This is, and because often when we are so focused on it, and often guilt will come up as well, because it's like, why am I the one feeling like this? I shouldn't be. Nobody else is feeling like this. And then that's sort of a secondary emotion, and that sort of self-focused of what's going on inside. But knowing that it will go, and that you will be out in the garden, or you will be playing with your children, or cooking dinner. So I think that was great advice, what your psychologist said, and it sounds like a real sort of turning point for you.
It really was, and it made it made a profound difference for me to develop. That was the first time I was ever introduced to the idea of acceptance, and
Mm,
and a caveat, I suppose, is that you don't have to like it.
yeah,
You're not inviting it, you're not welcoming it. You I guess in a sense you're making room for it. And how would you, if you're working, well, when you are working with your clients, how do you introduce this notion of, because it's really developing this discomfort tolerance, isn't it? It's,
yeah, yeah.
how do you introduce it, and what advice could you give to our listeners today to sort of start their own journey, if indeed this is new,
Yeah,
for our
yeah.
listeners as well?
I mean, as humans, we like to be in control, and we don't like uncertainty, and we don't like things that are not within our control. So, one of the first things that I do with my clients is we identify what's within their control and what's not within their control, because often when we're focused on the things that are not within our control, that's when we can have that struggle and that pain. So we go through the list, and some clients it rolls off the tongue, and they can identify them quite easily, and other clients they struggle with. Things that aren't within our control are things like, COVID's not within our control, the weather, those sort of macro things. Also, what others think of us, others' behaviour, which can cause a lot of pain for people. But also, in Japanese psychology, we can't control our automatic emotions and thoughts that pop up. So, if
Mm.
we can't control them, then trying to get rid of them is a real struggle, because it's near impossible to do. So that's how I introduce that concept of, well, if our emotions and our thoughts are something that we can't control, then what is within our control? What can we focus on? And one of the things that is in our control is how we respond to those emotions, how we respond to those unhelpful thoughts. So that's kind of the introduction of acceptance that I give my clients.
I love that. It is. It's a really powerful exercise to do, to write things down and see it, because you can ask the question of someone, can't you? Focus on what, or you can make the statement. I'm not saying you, but the general you. That we can focus on what we can control, but actually writing it down, it becomes much more clear, doesn't it? And it brings the person on board for the journey of their own volition. It's not, well, somebody's telling me that this, I can control this, but I can't control that. It's like, this is my list.
Yeah,
This is what I wrote down, and seeing that in front of you. It's, don't you think too, they're the sort of exercises that we can do with our kids,
yeah,
and no doubt you do too. And look, we had a situation, we've got a situation here that I'm, to be quite honest, I'm postponing the fallout,
yeah,
because I need time to deal with the fallout of the fact that our daughter changed her iPad passcode at night when she was listening. She was meant to be listening to a talking book. She's under strict instructions. Everything else is shut down on the iPad, but she accepted the talking book of an evening,
yeah.
and she changed the passcode, and now she can't remember it.
Oh
And
no.
so you have to reset. It's a factory reset. And so this, we've talked about already yesterday, when we've discovered that 6-digit magic number is not being recalled. And I've started to speak about, there are some things in our control and some things that aren't in our control. And I've started this process, but this exercise is actually something I'm going to do with her a little bit later, because I've said I'll research. I will. I have. I don't think there's
Mm.
any way around actually having to clear it and lose photos and videos and all that fun stuff that she's collected. So yeah, so it's a strategy that all of us can benefit from. We can all do it for ourselves, and it's something that we can powerfully teach the young people in our lives.
Absolutely. I mean, I've got a 15-year-old daughter, and if she comes to me with an emotional problem, just say it's around friendships, for example, I don't, the automatic thing that you do as a parent is you want to protect them and you want to fix things.
Mm.
And I recognize that thought or that urge that comes up to me to give her a hug and say everything will be all right. It's okay. It's them. It's not you. All those sort of the things that you naturally want to say to make her feel better. But what I do is I take a deep breath and whatever emotion that she's experienced, like she might say, I'm feeling a bit sad today. And I will say, that's okay. You can feel sad. It's and then we talk about what's going on for the day, what she can be doing. And it's like, just take that sadness along with her while she gets on with the things that she needs to do. It is such a powerful thing to teach your kids.
I love that. I love that notion that you don't have to get rid of uncomfortable or difficult feelings to do what's important.
Yeah.
Whereas it's natural, and like you were saying earlier, it's really natural because we don't like not feeling good,
Yeah.
but
Nobody does.
nobody does. And that's it. We like to feel good, but equally as the challenging emotions come and go, the positive emotions come and go as well. That's our life. Each day is lived with the experience of a whole range of different emotions, and anxiety is just another one, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
just another emotion, and we know that with anxiety, it's protective and adaptive, and it's
Yeah.
an evolutionary process that kept our ancestors safe. And we get really these days, those of us like me who have a more sensitive amygdala, the part of the brain that detects threat, can have that sort of fight or flight reaction triggered with little things.
Mm.
Little things can trigger it, and then can you talk to us a little bit about anxiety from that point of view, and when anxiety comes up, how we can use this approach to, like you were just saying about the way that you coach your daughter, how can we, when our own anxiety comes up, notice what skills do we need to be able to sort of start to put some of these practices in play?
Yeah. So Marita, Shoma Marita, who created Marita therapy, it was actually originally created for people with anxiety, but debilitating anxiety that they couldn't function normally in life. So that's sort of how it was created. And there was an approach that he gave. It was like a residential approach with, but back then in the 1920s, there weren't psychiatric hospitals. So he actually brought them into his home, which was a really beautiful environment, and he did the process there. But now it can be used in sort of our modern life. And Shoma believed that anxiety was energy, and if you recognise that as energy, people with anxiety can actually be really successful. So if they recognise the anxiety as energy and channel it into areas that's going to benefit them in living well. And as you said, anxiety is a survival response of humans. If we didn't have anxiety, we wouldn't exist as a human race today. And so when we go into that fight or flight, when our bodies go into that flight or fight response, we're producing the chemicals that are getting us into ready to fight or ready to flee. It's just that in our modern world, we don't have imminent danger. And so what happens is nothing happens with those chemicals. So it's one of the things with anxiety that I suggest is high intensity exercise, like just a quick spurt of high intensity exercise to burn up those chemicals. And then once you've done that, is to go to your breath and breathing, just to calm that nervous system down. And then you can go into a reframe and kind of and look at, okay, what is my purpose, like looking at purpose not so much as a purpose of your life, which is great if you've got that bigger purpose, but the micro purpose, the purpose of the moment. And so, that could be that your dog needs a walk. It could be that you need to clean up the kitchen. It could be that you read your child a book. It's like there's always a purpose, always things to be done. Just taking that anxiety along with you, but hopefully from that process, the anxiety is dialed down, and it's just a little murmur that you just carry with you until it fades.
Oh, I love that analogy. I love the idea of dialing it down, and I know in presentations I've likened it to the idea of a radio playing in the background. We're not turning it off,
Yeah.
and it's just murmuring away, and it's like, well, I mean, this is an example, here with me doing this podcast. It's in episode 3. You'll hear an interview I did with our mutual friend, Craig Harper.
Yep.
And, when I first sort of said to him, this is what I want to do, he was a huge cheerleader. And, then I was interviewed on one of his podcast episodes. He said, how's the podcast going? And I'm like, oh, I knew you were going to ask me that. And I knew that, I guess I'm the sort of person that, I'm the typical person that if I get IKEA furniture, I will get everything out. I'll check that I've got everything that it says I'm meant to have in the instructions, and then I'll go step 1, step 2. Whereas my husband Peter, he's the sort of person that will just like start building, you know.
Yeah.
And so I did Seth Godin's podcasting workshop. I borrowed books. I started reading, and I realized that all of that was a form of procrastination. That was my anxiety. I mean, I needed skills. I needed skills to build my confidence.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do it with a group of people. And when you do an online sort of course, you're doing it with a group of people who are, cheering you on and vice versa. But I said to Craig, quite honestly, in that episode, I have resistance. Which is what Seth Godin calls it, resistance, but I knew it's anxiety. It's this, I'm doing something new.
Yeah.
And I'm so used to talking, as you know, to big groups and presentations and the like. And it's something I love and it's something I'm comfortable with. But I don't know, it's something new and different. And it's something that's taken me time to get to. And so, but I just knew, and I said to Craig, I've been slowed down by this, but it's not stopping me.
Yeah.
I am anxious. My anxiety is coming along with me. I'm still going to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And it's something that I really want to bring to this podcast, is the idea that we can take it with us.
Yeah.
Because, people have hopes and dreams and goals and, things that people want to do. All of you listening, we all do. We all have things we want to achieve in our life. And it's so easy for anxiety to get in the way, isn't it, Carls?
Oh, yes, yeah. There's a quote, I'm just trying to, Dan Beachman, he said, so many of us will die without reaching our full potential. And that's allowing that fear and that anxiety, those uncomfortable emotions, stopping us from doing what's important. And it's that this is where this acceptance and making room for these emotions is that you can keep going. You can put one foot in front of the other and keep going, working towards a goal, and not allowing these emotions to stop you from doing what's important. And that's the premise of Japanese psychology, is rather than leading an emotion-centered life, you're leading a life based on purpose. And often our anxiety, sorry, Jo. So often,
no, go.
Often our anxiety is telling us something. Like, I will often feel anxiety before a talk or before doing a podcast. And I think, what is this anxiety telling me? It's usually telling me to do something, and that's prepare. And I'm the same. I'm somebody who has to prepare. I have to do my research and come on and try and prepare as much as I can to be the best that I can be. Yeah. If I gave into that anxiety, like I remember the first time I was on Craig's podcast, and oh my God, he'd rung the night before. He must have had a cancellation, I think. But he rang me the night before, and I was oh my God, I was riddled with anxiety, and I did have that thought, maybe I'll just tell him I can't do it. Like there was
Mm.
that little voice protecting me, and that's all it was, is my mind trying to protect me, doing its job, going, just don't do it, Carly. You'll be fine. Just don't do it. But I didn't listen to it, and I prepared and I did the podcast, and it went really well. I was really happy with it. If we can move through, as you say, this willingness to feel the discomfort, move through it, and then you just don't know what's going to be on the other side, because that's when we get out of our comfort zone, and that is where the magic happens. That's when we see results. But also a willingness to fail as well, isn't it? It's
Mm.
like, if there's no guarantees of the outcome, but we can focus on the on the process, and we can focus on our purpose and what's meaningful to us. And as long as we stick with that, then the outcome doesn't matter.
It's you've nailed it there. The idea that because we do have that protective kind of instinct to say no, this could go really badly, or you could say something embarrassing, or in the case of a podcast like you did, and yet it's meaningful what you're doing, and it's important. And if you, like you say, if you can be guided by that, knowing what really is fulfilling for you, and have that willingness that, you know what, it might not be exactly what I hoped it would be. I might not have remembered to say all the things I really wanted to say, but knowing that it gets easier and you get more used to it. And I love that. It's a line of thinking that I've been using personally with this. And I remember, in back in that, in when I mentioned earlier in our conversation that I was interviewing the head of wellbeing for the AFL Players Association, and that was when I was introduced to wellbeing science and this whole new world of acceptance and commitment therapy. And I used to do a lot of interviews. I used to do a lot of writing for magazines in mental health and wellbeing, and the science of high performance. And I've probably done hundreds of interviews, and they're usually over the phone. And so I just said to myself, look, I've done a lot of this before. I've done this before. I love a chat. I'm always so passionate about learning, and then bringing that learning to the public, to people who can apply it, because it's so powerful, and it's been powerful in my own life personally. And you and I have both seen and understand, not only through the research, but through our work with other people, that it is life-changing.
Yeah.
But the idea of accepting, the idea of failing, but we have the worst case scenario, don't we?
Mm.
You never fail completely. You just learn and grow. You might stuff something up. You might say something that you wish you'd said differently.
Mm.
But at the end of the day, the sun still goes down, the sun comes up the next day, and you've learned from it. And the next time you do it, you're more confident, and you're more willing to move through those uncomfortable feelings. It's the only way to get through it.
It is, yeah. And there's that approach in ACT, which I just love, and I find my clients really resonate with this, is that when you have a thought, you don't judge that thought as right or wrong. You judge it as whether it's helpful.
Mm.
So if you have that thought of, imposter syndrome is a huge one. It's people who think they're going to get found out and that they're not worthy of doing what they're doing. It's like, okay, that thought's popped into your head, and probably has many, many times over the years. But if you don't give it attention, you don't give it that focus, and you go, well, is this thought helpful? No, it's not helpful. So what is helpful? What do I need to do? That's something that has been a real light bulb moment for a lot of my clients. And that's around attention, isn't it? It's around, what are you giving your attention to? Because we can have an attention inwards on all these thoughts and emotions that are happening, or we can turn our attention outwards into the needs of the moment, what you're working towards, and move forward that way. So using attention as a skill is really, really important. And I've found that I'm so aware now, because I've been practicing this stuff for many years now. I'm so aware of where my attention is, and is that attention helping me be the best that I can be?
Mm. And that's a skill, isn't it?
Mm.
And I'd love you to talk to us a little bit more about that ability to observe, that ability to sort of, bear witness to your thinking, which we know is metacognition, the
Yeah,
idea of observing your thinking, because it is a skill.
yeah.
How do you start to develop that skill? It's powerful and life-changing, and it's something I'd really love everyone to sort of start to put into play. So what would you recommend?
Yeah, so what I would recommend is a really fun exercise, and you can do this with your kids. Is because you can observe your own thoughts. So there's you, and then there's a part of you that maybe is anxious, or there's a part of you that puts yourself down, or is worried about what other people thinks. All those things that your mind comes up with, just in protective mode, but not helpful. So that's a part of you can observe. Then there's a part of you that is the best of you. It's like, what character strengths do you have, or what character strengths do you want to develop more of, so you can be the best you can be, and live a really rich and fulfilled life. So what we do is we call these two areas of you the sage and the gremlin. So
Hmm.
everybody has a gremlin, and the gremlin's not going away. So this isn't the purpose of this exercise is not to recognize the gremlin and to get rid of the gremlin. The purpose of it is to recognize when the gremlin's in control.
Mm.
So you list all the characteristics of your gremlin. So, it could be, my gremlin worries what other people think of me. My gremlin is anxious. My gremlin gets angry quickly, all those things, whatever it is for you. And then your sage, it's like, what are your character strengths? So I'm kind, I'm a good listener, I'm ambitious, all those things, or something that you've got maybe a little bit of, but you want to strengthen. So you write all those down, and then this is a really fun way to practice that metacognition, because you give the sage and the gremlin a name. So, one of my clients, their gremlin's called Jeffrey. And their sage is Tina. So they are able to, it helps them identify. I use the analogy of who's driving the car. If your gremlin is driving the car, then that's the direction that you're going. But if you can recognize the gremlin's driving the car, boot him to the back seat or put him in the boot and get your sage in control of the car, then you're going to be going in the direction that you want to go, that you can live a good life.
Oh, that's an exercise everybody can do, and
Yep.
it's just even that, because we get so lost in our thoughts, don't we? We get so lost, and I've used the metaphor before of the river. It's like being swept down the river. You don't really have control. You're being pulled away from the present, and when you can get out and observe what you're thinking, it's like getting out of the river, standing on the bank and just sort of watching things go by, and to have that idea of being able to observe, and then that just it's something that takes practice, isn't it? The idea of being able to recognize who's driving the car,
Yeah.
and then make a decision about how you want to use your attention to make a change.
Yeah.
It's something that just builds over time, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And that's where purpose comes in as well. It's so if you recognize that, or if you get your sage driving the car, it's like, what direction are you going? It's like working out your values, what's important to you, recognizing not so much what, sort of focusing on you and what I need, but focusing on what the world needs. It's like, what can I do for others? And that is a redirection of attention from inwards to yourself to external and outwards. The other thing that's really that's effective in redirecting your attention is using your senses. So if you think about walking your dog, you can walk your dog and around the block and come home and not remember anything that you've seen, because your focus of attention is so much on your internal world of the thoughts that are going on in your head. So you can practice walking the dog, but directing your attention to the external world and using your sense of sight, your sense of sound. And since I've started doing this, whenever I'm feeling, worried or stressed or any of those sort of emotions, I love looking out and looking at birds and just watching a bird. I've become a bird watcher.
I love
And
that.
it's or just observing, like even when you go for a walk, just observing, is there a house that, like, I don't know how many houses I've actually noticed that I'd never seen before. And we've been living on this very long street for quite a number of years. But it's amazing what you can observe in this outside world rather than keeping
Mm,
your attention always on your internal world, because often we can feel trapped when that's happening. So using your
mm,
senses, your sense of sight, your sense of sound, your sense of touch, and one of the tools that I do give people, it sounds so simple, but it's really effective, is to look for the color blue.
mm,
So if you're really feeling some uncomfortable emotions, just look for the color blue. It can be something large as the sky. It can be something really small, like, a detail on someone's t-shirt, and you look for five things of color blue. You might listen to four sounds that you can hear. Um, your sense of smell. What can you smell in the air? And using your senses, it's a mindfulness exercise, but it's in the moment. You can use it anywhere. And using your attention as a skill and as a resource to
mm.
help you live well.
Because that's the thing, we can't control our thoughts.
Yeah,
But we can learn to control our attention.
that's right. Yeah, you have control over your attention.
Mm.
Yeah.
I love that it's a grounding exercise, isn't it? Because it's so easy for our minds. And we know from the research that nearly 50% of the time we are not in the present. We are either in the past or in the future. And, those of us with anxiety, a lot of people will say it's very future focused, and it is. It's the what ifs, it's the what if this happens and the what if that happens. But, for someone like me, I know in the past, if I've been in the car park at school drop off way back when, once upon a time, we could take kids to school.
Back in the old
Those
days.
were the days. I think I don't know how many days we're in lockdown, but it's a world record of lockdown days here in Victoria.
I
And
know, because I'm journaling it. I think
oh,
we're on day 47 for this lockdown 6, and it's like 200 and it's close to 230 days. I think it's crazy.
goodness me. That's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's it's just um yes, it's a very, very, very strange time in which we
yeah.
live. And this experience that I was just reflecting on about the car park was, I waved at a mum in a car and she didn't wave back. And golly gosh, I've got such great skills now, and these are not things, because the skills I use, like in the moment, it was like, the classic anxiety. What have I done? Have I upset her? Did I say something? Did
Yeah.
I not do something I was meant to do? This, what have I done wrong kind of, and then I would, for the old me, before I developed really strong thinking skills, would have really ruminated over that, and then sought to somehow sort of rectify,
Mm,
or help myself feel better by reaching out, connecting, and just making sure, oh, it's all smoothed over, it's all okay. Which
yeah.
that that now it's, and of course we can't control how we think, but I would ask the question, I'd notice I'm having the thought that I've upset her. And then I'd say to myself, is it helpful? And I'd say no. And then I just turn my attention back to what I could do in that moment, which was
Mm,
focus on my driving. Because what you said before is so true. We can go for a walk, but we can also go for a drive
yeah.
and not have a recollection. And you could genuinely wonder how you safely got from A to B.
Yeah, absolutely.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, I actually, when I drive now, I turn the radio off and I use it as an opportunity to practice my attention and
Mm.
and just pay
Isn't
attention.
it? Sorry to interrupt you, but that's extraordinary that you do that. But on the face of it, and we all do it, isn't it? Like when you look at it, you zoom out and you look at that idea that we could all benefit from using our driving as a way to focus our attention. I mean,
Mm,
what does that tell us about where we are in our lives when that's something that we generally don't do, is we sort of go on autopilot. I mean, it's
Do you know the other thing that if you're talking about opportunities to practice this stuff, and I was coaching a young girl, she's 21, and she had this light bulb moment that whenever she had any space of time, she would fill it with something. She was either listening to music, she was scrolling on her phone, or she just never sat with herself and her thoughts. And like, you think when you go and get a takeaway coffee and people are standing around waiting for their coffee, what I do now is I don't get my phone out, because most people are looking at their phone, their heads are down and looking at their phone. So I use that space of time to just use my attention, and I, will just look at my surroundings and just kind of take it in, rather than just always having to fill this space of time. Also in the shower as well is a good opportunity, feeling the hot water on your body, using that your sight to watch the droplets of water come down the screen, or just having opportunities when you do have a space to just notice where your attention is. It's rather than filling it.
Why do we do that? Why are we always looking for the distraction?
Look, I think a lot of it is around mobile phones and social media. I mean, it's the science behind that is attention and time is what makes them money. So it becomes addictive for people to do, and it's a short-term escape from life, or if there are problems, it's a very short-term distraction, and very easy distraction as well. I mean, it's the majority of my clients will say, one of my strategies to get my mind off this problem is to pick up my phone and scroll or watch the news. I mean, the news gets updated now numerous times a day, and it's like, going back into the news and just saying, I wonder what the update is. But just recognizing where your attention's getting stolen there, and to take control back and go, no, actually, this is not how I want to live my life. It's like, you don't want to be on your deathbed looking back, or you wouldn't be on your deathbed looking back going, geez, I wish I'd scrolled a bit more. It's like, it's use your time. This is your time, your life. It's like each moment matters. And it's like, how am I going to live each moment of my life? And one of the best things you can do is use these opportunities to have that space to use your senses and just observe where your attention is, and practice that way.
I love that. And, the idea of how much time we lose on devices, and that urge, and it's using this skill of, I'm noticing I'm having an urge, and it's not an instruction. It's like thoughts, thoughts are not facts. Well, some thoughts are true, some aren't. We ask the question, are they helpful? But you can have an urge, but you don't have to act on it. You can notice you're having an urge to pick up your phone, to pour another glass of wine,
Eat the chocolate cake.
eat the chocolate. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I think, COVID times have really challenged all of us, the great majority of us, with regards to, succumbing to our urges, because there's not been, on the face of it, there's not a lot that we can do. We're stuck in our homes. At the moment we're in lockdown. We're only allowed to leave the house for a number of reasons. But when we stop and think about that, there's so many meaningful, purposeful things that we can do. And one of them is have a think about, take the time to think about what it is that's important. And that's perhaps we'll talk about this on another episode, Carls, because that's a whole nother.
It is, yeah. It's one of my favourite subjects as well.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So we'll definitely come back to that. But just even that inkling, that idea that a huge thing I'd really love to support people to do is to recognise, well, is there something that I want to do, big or small, and can I notice this discomfort, notice the urge to do other things? That procrastination is just such a symptom of anxiety and a really easy way to pass the time. But what steps can I take to meaningfully move towards something? And it could be as small as just jump online and do a little bit of research. Don't get pulled into checking out what the the wags were wearing at the Brownlow Medal, just,
Yeah.
or the Met Gala amazingness of costume design. Just think about what's important. And, I'd love to just, I guess, as we sort of come to the end of this conversation, just ask you, what would your advice be to someone who is feeling, sensing that anxiety? Maybe someone listening, maybe you want to start a podcast. Maybe you want to move your side hustle along a little bit. Maybe you want to learn a new skill. What would your advice be, Carls? What would you say?
Yeah, what would my advice be? I think it's everything that we've talked about recognizing, making room for that natural response as humans to of fear, and that fear of failure, that fear of like what other people are going to judge, how they're going to judge me, and moving through that and taking one step at a time. It's like you can have that big goal, if you want to start a podcast, that's your big goal, but what can I do today, just for today, to move towards that? And it could be just a really small thing, and just do those sort of implement small things every day that is going to add up to a bigger thing over time, if that makes sense. And it's also
Mm.
to look into the future and sort of imagine looking back on your life and going, what's my story? And looking back on your life from today, not from the past, because the past has happened. We can't change that. But look at today, up until, say, you're 80 years old, and thinking, what's my story? It's like, what do I want to have achieved? How do I want to live my life? What strengths do I want to live by? What's important to me in my life? And then use those sort of as a compass to guide you to take action, and to guide you in what direction that you want to go in. And I
Mm.
think what that does is it means we're responding to life rather than reacting to life, because we have a bit of a very flexible kind of, do I say framework, or a flexible guide there to when we're making decisions each day. And I think particularly around COVID, I mean, this is going down in history,
Mm.
and we're going to be talking about this for years to come. And it's looking back on this time, and imagine talking to your grandkids and going, well, what was my experience over COVID? Did I choose to lie on the sofa all day, eat cake and watch TV, or did I use it as an opportunity to go for walks every day, to catch up with my one friend? Was it a time where I was like reflective, and I kind of really identified who was important to me and what was important to my life? But you have the power now to choose what you do now for the rest of your life.
It's such good advice, and I'd like to finish just by asking you, for those that are listening, because we do know, don't we, that when we've behaved, for want of a better word, we've taken action that's not in alignment with our values, that's not who we really want to be, and then we can judge ourselves for that. and
Hmm.
and that, that idea of self-compassion is important, isn't it? That idea that, and I have a saying that, when we know better we do better, and it's about life. We're all lifelong learners, and but for those people that are listening that have struggled up until now, is self-compassion, that, and that idea of uh, compassion for, what's happened up to this point where you might start to make different decisions. Is that something that you share in your work as well?
Yeah, I mean that's part of the work of looking at what's within your control, and the past
Mm.
is not within your control, and how you the thoughts and emotions that come up are not within your control, but you can respond to those thoughts and emotions that come up. And if you're working towards something, then again it's sort of that coexisting with, okay, this stuff happened to me in my past, and I can't change it, but I can respond to it now. And who do I want to be? What's the best version of me today that I can
Mm.
strive to be? And
Mm.
I just love the serenity prayer. I think everybody should use this as a guide. And it's God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, taking this world as it is, not as I would have it. I just think it's just beautiful. It gives me goosebumps.
I just got goosebumps just because I've not heard the prayer in full, only the
Yeah.
first part of it. And I think that is the perfect place to, there's so much wisdom in you and experience, that, and we'll absolutely do this again sooner rather than later, but it's a really beautiful place for us to finish up.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. I think that's, I have a blackboard in my kitchen and I wrote, at the moment it says, no feeling is final. And one of the kids has got the chalk and said, for sure.
Love it.
So cute. They're 11 and 13, probably the 11-year-old.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm going to, it's nice to have it up because sometimes we need reminders because, life can get in the way a little bit sometimes. But
do you know, we're never exonerated from this. It's not like we're going to reach some perfect state ever. It's like we just keep aiming for the shining star.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's it. We're all human. We're all flawed. We all experience a whole range of emotions and ups and downs and challenges. And there's certainly been, plenty of that lately. But, amidst all of this storm, we can anchor ourselves and we can, take action in the direction of what's really important for us, even if it's a tiny, weeny little step in that direction.
Yeah.
So how can people get in contact with you? And I know you're writing a book at the moment, which is really exciting. Can you tell us how people can find you, contact you, and work with you, and a little bit about your book?
Yeah, sure. So you can go to my website, which is carlytaylorcoaching.com.au, and you can reach me from there. And yes, I am writing a book, an ebook. So hopefully I will have that ready sort of early next year. It's called Arugamama, which we didn't get a chance to talk about, but maybe we'll talk about another time. But yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Oh, yes, I am too. And just to sort of keep us waiting, just to give us a little inkling of what Arugamama means, could you sum it up for us so that we know what to expect when we chat to you next?
Yeah, so Arugamama is a Japanese term and it roughly translates to life as it is. So it's that acceptance. It's a principle of acceptance, but it's not a passive, got to just put up with it type acceptance. It's with life as it is, what do I do next? So there's the action part of it. So I live by this principle now, and it's a beautiful one.
Oh my gosh. So I've been calling it Arugamama.
I was originally calling it Arugamama, and then Trudy Boyle, who's an expert on Japanese psychology, was on my husband Paul Taylor's podcast, and she says it's Arugamama. So I've had to change. I've had to rewire my brain.
It sounds much more, it sounds much more sophisticated somehow, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Arugamama. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that. And yes, let's start with that next time perhaps, because
that'd be great.
this is just a launching point for us. And so look, carlytaylorcoaching.com.au. Carly's a really wonderful friend of mine and so passionate about her work, and the impact that you're making, Carly, is just profound in people's lives. And so I really encourage you to reach out and follow Carly online as well. You'll find her on Instagram and all those cool places that that we try to hang out and not spend an overly inordinate amount of time.
Yes.
So look, Carly, thank you so much once again. It's just been a joy chatting to you. I really appreciate you being, this is episode number 1, and you've just really reinforced for me so much of the thinking that I've been embracing and using as strength to keep moving forward and to bring this to the world the way that I'd always hoped. So I really, really appreciate you being part of this and helping me kick it off.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on, and you really you walk the talk with this stuff. It's like you are leading a purpose-driven life. And that's this podcast represents that. So well done, and I'm so honoured to be on the first one.
Oh, thanks, Carls. I'll see you next time.
Okay, bye.
Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr Jodi Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.